What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 best exercises you could do in order to maximize results in the gym. So, without further ado, let's just get started. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And yeah, and I'll update you guys with more content, fitness related, lifestyle related, anything like that. So, stay tuned. So the first exercise I would do is, or I would, stick to is probably incline dumbbell press. Now, the reason I would do incline dumbbell press is because for me personally, the upper chest is a weak point. So obviously I want to grow my upper chest as much as I can, just do as much work as I can on my upper chest. If I do a decline or flat dumbbell press, I'll just be putting more emphasis on my lower pec. So I would do incline. And that's not to say that decline or flat are bad. I mean, if you have, you know, uh, a bad lower pec, then I would do flat or decline, but it's rare to find someone that has, you know, uh, a bad lower pec, or just, I guess, not aesthetically pleasing lower pec. So I would definitely do incline. Plus, it's a compound movement, so I could, progressively overload on it. It's an exercise I could always just get good at. It's really going to put stress on multiple muscle groups, so that's why I would do incline dumbbell press. Another exercise I would do is pull-ups. Now, you could go between pull-ups and lat pull-down, but I kind of like the pull-ups more. That's like the meat and potatoes of your back, pretty much your lats. And the reason I would do pull-ups is because I would say that once you get to a certain point on the lat pull down and you're trying to go heavier, it could get, your form can get, I guess, sloppy. Although you're more stationary, you're in the more stationed position, right? Because you're fixed in place. It's very easy to use momentum. Whereas personally, for me, when I do any kind of pull-ups, I'm always just thinking about, retracting my scapula as far back as I can and pulling up with my back. And you also have the choice to progressively overload. Now, obviously, you could still do lat pull down, especially if you can't do a pull up. Then in that case, I would stick to lat pull downs. But if you can do pull ups, I would do pull ups. It's just also more of a functional exercise, so all around, other than just a bodybuilding aspect, it's a good exercise to do in every kind of aspect of training. So I would stick with the pull-up just because it provides more functionality than the lat pull down would provide. So yeah, I would definitely do that. The third exercise I would do is a squat. Now, I would do a squat because that is the primary exercise to do for legs. It's a compound movement. You're basically working your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, and that's going to build the base for your legs. You'll be able to progressively overload on it, change the tempo, change the reps, change the sets, change the weight. You could do so much with it. You could play around with it pretty much. And there's a different factor to squats. Squats just give you those big legs. That's what I found in my own personal experience. Whereas if I prioritized any machine-based, or not just machine-based, but any kind of like isolation kind of exercise, don't get me wrong, they're great. But I just didn't see the same kinds of results that I did with squats. But anyhow, I mean, I I would still do, if obviously no one's in the case where they have to do just 5 exercises, but you know, I would do squats because you're allowed to, it's just more functional. It's a more functional exercise. It's, there isn't many exercises like that. Like leg press also, it's good for bodybuilding, but it's not an all-around kind of exercise. There isn't any kind of functionality to it, whereas with a squat there is. And there is obviously some cons. Some people may have mobility issues, which is completely understandable. I wouldn't do it if you have some sort of injury, um, or existing injury or anything like that, just because you're going to make that injury worse over time. And that's not the goal. The goal is longevity. You want to be able to do this as long as you possibly can. So, you know, at that point, I would probably do something else. But just going back to compound versus isolation exercises are good for building legs. I'm not trying to say they're not. I incorporate a lot of isolation work for my legs because I think they're great. But I usually start off a leg session with a compound exercise. I usually find that kind of gets me, by the time I'm done with that compound exercise, I'm already almost like I've given it almost my all. And then the isolation stuff is kind of like the icing on the cake, but it's still effective. It's still going to make a difference. You're still, from doing quad extension, you're going to grow your legs. Quad extension directly puts tension on your quads. So you're going to get growth out of doing quad extension. Obviously, with manipulating the tempo, the reps, the sets, the weight, all kinds of things like that, you'll be able to grow your legs even just with quad extension if you're trying to grow your quads specifically. So they're both good, but in this scenario, if I'm, it's the end of the world and I got to pick 5 exercises, I would do a squat. So yeah. Next exercise I would do, so we said bench press, incline dumbbell press, pull-ups, squats. So the next thing I would do is I would probably do a seated dumbbell shoulder press. Now, I would do a seated dumbbell shoulder press because, number one, the dumbbells give me, free range. So I can move kind of freely. Not that I would advise you to do that, but you're not stationed in one area, whereas with a bar, you're just fixed pretty much, which can cause some sort of imbalances. And, once that can be working a little bit more, and that could cause a muscle imbalance. But I would do dumbbell, ideally, and I would do it seated because just that factor of standing is going to require a lot of core strength. So in your lower back, your abdominals, everything has to be tight and just strong. Which, if I'm just trying to focus on working the delts, then I would probably do a seated variation because you take all that out of the equation. Although you're still stabilizing yourself to an extent with your core, you're not stabilizing yourself as much as you would do with a standing variation of that. Plus, obviously, with the dumbbells, it's the same thing. Change the tempo, change the reps, the sets, the weight. Basically, just change all the variables I could change in order to maximize muscle mass, pretty much. So yeah, I would do dumbbell shoulder press seated. And the last exercise I would do, and this is a bit of a controversial one. I know some people are going to be like, what? But I would do a Romanian deadlift for my last exercise, and that's with the barbell. Now, the reason I would do that over a regular deadlift is because I tend to find that for me, when I do a regular deadlift, I tend to incorporate you know, a lot of back trying to carry that weight up, especially lower back, which isn't the goal of the exercise. For me, a deadlift is more of a hamstring based, I guess, exercise, which is kind of what I want to focus on. You're still going to be working your back just from, you know, basically trying to carry the weight up, and all the muscles in your back are going to be under tension to an extent because you're going to be holding everything back, retracting everything back, and you'll be able to build that thickness in your back just from doing that. So you're killing two birds with one stone. Just the added benefit of the RDL is that you're not going to be putting as much emphasis on your lower back, which is ideal because when you put too much emphasis on your lower back, you tend to probably injure it. So that's not the goal. The goal isn't to injure it. The goal is to, you know, obviously keep it, you know, healthy to an extent. Obviously, you don't want to injure your lower back because it's going to screw up the rest of your compound lifts like squats and you know even just a barbell row or anything like that. So yeah, I would do an RDLs with the barbell because I'll be able to work more of my hamstrings, and I'll also be working my back to add that thickness to an extent, of course. Obviously we're not going to be faced with a problem like this. Highly unlikely that I'm just going to have to be doing 5 exercises. I like my freedom. I would rather be able to do as many exercises as I want than just stick to 5 exercises because variety is the spice of life. So you have to just change it up. Ultimately, you have to change it up. But those are the 5 go-to exercises I would do. Assuming you want to just, maximize results and not worry about having to do too much variation, especially if you're a person that works, a rigorous job and you just, you don't want too much to think about. You just want to get the workout done and get results, which is the goal at the end of the day. But, obviously changing it up also makes it more interesting. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please smash that like button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.